One photo from Apollo 11 showed a massive structure near a crater, until the high-res version suddenly vanished. A former Air Force photo technician said he saw domes and radar dishes in classified lunar images. According to him, the far side of the moon might already be occupied. And in 2019, China's rover found a strange green blob in a crater. Did NASA try to hide what was found on the dark side of the moon? One of the oldest moon conspiracies is that NASA's been secretly editing out weird stuff from their photos, especially from the far side. People have claimed that certain images in NASA's public archive used to show towers, domes, these massive shadows, until the high-res versions mysteriously disappeared or were replaced. In the early 2000s, a bunch of online forums blew up over one particular image, AS11385564, taken during Apollo 11. It allegedly showed a huge, unnatural structure near a crater edge, but when people went back to download it later, the image was blurry, or it was just gone. Same thing happened with several far-side images from the lunar orbiter missions. There's also a theory that before the public ever saw these photos, a secret team went through them and cleaned up anything that looked too strange. That's how the term airbrushed by NASA got started. Now, is it possible these are just glitches, compression issues, lighting tricks? Sure. But when multiple versions of the same image start vanishing or getting downgraded, it's not hard to see why some people think something's being covered up. So here's one of the more out there theories, but it's been floating around for decades. Some people genuinely believe there's an alien base hidden on the far side of the moon, and that's why NASA stopped going back. So the idea here is that the side of the moon we never see was the perfect place for something to hide. One guy named Carl Wolf, who used to work in an Air Force photo lab in the 60s, claimed that he saw classified lunar images that showed massive towers, domes, and what looked like radar dishes. Another former Army guy, Bob Dean, backed him up, saying, "We've known about non-human structures on the moon for years. There's never been any solid proof, obviously, but their claims still get dragged up in UFO circles to this day." The theory goes even deeper, saying the Apollo missions were more about reconnaissance than science and exploration. Supposedly, we made contact, got warned off, and haven't been back since. NASA's official reason for not returning is budget cuts, but for the people who believe this stuff, that explanation doesn't hold up, especially when you consider how obsessed we've been with Mars and how quiet it's been about the moon over the years. In 2019, China's Yutu-2 rover rolled into a tiny crater on the far side of the moon and spotted something that made scientists a little confused. It was this weird, shiny, greenish blob, described as kinda gel-like. Now, the moon is dry and dusty though, so what the hell was a green gel doing there? The Chinese team was so confused they paused everything and went back for a closer look, and it turns out it wasn't actual gel. It was actually probably rock that had been melted by a meteor impact, basically glassy material formed in the heat. But this was still totally unexpected. It was sitting inside a crater, it had a glossy sheen and reflected light in a way that made it really stand out against the matte gray surroundings. Some people online ran with wild theories about it being alien goop, fuel leaks from some buried craft, even that it was some sort of life form that liquefied under sunlight. And even though scientists gave a reasonable explanation, the fact that the rover crew didn't recognize it at first is still pretty cool, because what else could be out there that we haven't discovered yet, especially below the surface? There's this crater on the far side of the moon called Paracelsus C, and it's been causing a stir for years, mainly because of weird shadows and shapes inside it that don't really look natural. In 2016, an image analyst named Mark Carlotto said he spotted weird shapes inside the crater, stuff that didn't look natural. Using top-down images from NASA's own Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, he pointed out what looked like long corridors, tower-like objects, and what he called a massive platform. The shapes are aligned at 90-degree angles, kind of like buildings or tunnels. Now, to be clear, NASA never acknowledged any of this as real. The official explanation is that shadows and low-res photos can trick your eyes, pareidolia and all that. But this isn't just one random blurry photo. Multiple images show the same stuff from different angles, and the crater is hard to see from Earth. There's a spot on the far side of the moon that totally stands out when scientists scan for radioactive material, especially thorium. It's known as the Compton Belkovich anomaly, and it doesn't match anything else on the moon. Most of the surface is flat, dry, and let's face it, it's pretty boring. But this places signs of something different going on underneath. When NASA mapped out the surface using special sensors, this one zone lit up with way more thorium than anywhere else. That's unusual, because thorium is pretty rare on the moon. What really makes it strange is the shape of the ground there. Instead of the usual craters and flat plains, the surface is all lumpy and raised like something pushed up from below. That's usually what happens when magma rises and hardens, so scientists think this spot might have had some kind of underground eruption a long time ago, which is odd because that kind of activity wasn't supposed to happen on this side of the moon. The moon has these super weird bright squiggly lines across parts of it called lunar swirls. They look like someone airbrushed giant white tattoos onto the ground. One of the biggest is called Reiner Gamma, but there's no crater, no impact site, nothing to explain why these things are there. And they show up on the far side too. Interestingly, they match up with magnetic anomalies, random spots where the moon has a weird magnetic field. The moon isn't supposed to have a strong magnetic field anymore, so where is this coming from? Then there's the phantom lights. For decades, astronomers have reported brief flashes and glows coming from certain parts of the moon. They're called TLPs, which stands for transient lunar phenomena, and they've been caught on camera more than once. They blink, flare up, they vanish in seconds. Scientists have thrown out theories like gas leaks, solar flares, or moonquakes, kicking up reflective dust, but none of it really sticks. These things don't make much sense. They don't seem to be caused by impacts or anything obvious. Most impact craters look like, well, craters. Messy, uneven, jagged, but a bunch of craters on the moon, especially on the far side, are almost perfectly circular, no matter the angle the object hit from. That's already a bit weird, but what's even stranger is what's going on under them. NASA discovered these things called mascons, short for mass concentrations. They're basically hidden blobs of extra gravity underneath the surface. When satellites fly over them, their paths get slightly pulled or tilted, which is how they were discovered. NASA engineers had to account for these when planning Apollo landings, because they could mess with orbit paths. And the mascons didn't always line up with things you can actually see on the surface, like mountains and craters. Of course, there are conspiracies that talk about how there might be buried technology down there that explains the mysterious pull. During the Apollo 12 mission, NASA purposely crashed a piece of the lunar module onto the surface. What happened next freaked some people out. The moon literally rang. Seismic sensors planted nearby picked up vibrations that lasted for nearly an hour. It echoed like a bell. Now, the scientific explanation is that the inside of the moon is super dry and rigid, which makes shockwaves bounce around for longer than they would on Earth. But to a lot of people, it sounded a little too weird. It kicked off a whole wave of theories that the moon might be hollow, or at least has massive empty chambers inside it. Some even took it further, claiming the moon is entirely artificial. A few researchers have pushed the idea that it's not a moon at all, but some kind of ancient alien craft or satellite. In the last few years, scans of the moon have picked up weird heat signals underground, random spots that are way warmer than they should be. Some of them are around old craters, and in a few places there's even salt buried deep down below the surface, which is kind of strange for a place with no water. Scientists say it could be old lava pockets that haven't cooled off yet, or maybe some radioactive material giving off heat, but the moon's been dead for billions of years, so how could there still be anything warm down there? If the heat's not coming from a natural source, then what is it? Could there be something artificial buried underground, something that's still active? There's no proof of that, obviously, but the fact that we're even seeing unexpected heat at all is enough to make you wonder. And it's not just one hotspot, there are a bunch of these scattered across the far side. And speaking of stuff buried deep under the moon, China's Yutu-2 rover, which landed on the far side of the moon in 2019, has ground-penetrating radar that basically lets it see beneath the surface in a sense, and what it picked up was weird. Instead of just solid rock, it found multiple layers of different materials stacked underneath. Dust, broken rocks, possibly ancient lava flows, and voids that don't quite match what scientists expected. In total, they found at least 5 separate layers going down about 40 meters. Some of it looks like debris from impacts, Other parts seem more structured, like the ground was built up or shaped over time. And the deeper they scanned, the more complex it got. Now, this doesn't mean alien bases or even like tunnels, but it does mean the far side of the moon has way more going on underground than anyone thought. And because U-22 is the first rover to explore that side, we're only just starting to figure out what's really buried there. I've been your host, James. I'll catch you, yes, you specifically, in the next video.